Team Brownsville was created by 5 close friends who took it upon themselves to assist immigrants seeking asylum at the border in their hometown of Brownsville, Texas, when no one else was. Today, the founders of the nonprofit organization join me to discuss their work. Welcome, Andrea Morris-Rudnick, Sergio Cordova, and David Lucio, and Dr. Melba Lucio of Team Brownsville. Thanks for coming on, guys. I appreciate it. Describe the city of Brownsville, Texas. This is where you guys are right now. What is Brownsville, Texas like, and what's the ethnic mix?
It's on the border by the sea. Ethnic mixes, predominantly Hispanic, Mexican American.
Furthest south you can go is Brownsville, Texas. Border city is Matamoros, Mexico. And we had the last Civil War battle here in Texas, in Brownsville. So we're way down there.
And this is where the Rio Grande empties into the Gulf of Mexico?
Correct.
Right. Now, there is a bridge that goes over the Rio Grande. Is that what separates Mexico from the United States of America?
That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah, so describe what that's like, the logistics of that bridge.
Actually, in Brownsville, we have 3 international bridges.
Uh-huh.
The Gateway Bridge is the one we've been crossing and helping because the immigrant camp is set up right across the Gateway Bridge.
And the other bridges are not used by immigrants to cross over as much?
They are, but there was enough area and land there where that's where the camp ended up being, in that particular bridge. But I would say the bridge is probably a quarter of a mile long.
Now, let's talk a little pre-Trump. What was the immigration policies like in your community in Brownsville, Texas?
Okay, pre-Trump, there was no metering.
What is metering?
Okay, metering is when people were not allowed to cross the bridge freely. Before metering, any person could just walk over the bridge and ask for asylum. When the Trump administration started, they put Customs and Border Patrol agents in the middle of the bridge. Anyone who has a passport or has the proper documents can cross. Asylum seekers are not allowed to cross.
And how do they limit the number of people that come on the bridge by metering?
They come to the middle of the bridge. If you're here to seek asylum, you are not allowed to cross. They put you on a list, on a waiting list, because they only wanted a few people to cross per day. When we first started going, there was about 20 people waiting to cross. And sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 days go by and they don't let anybody cross. Mm-hmm. So we never knew how many. We saw the list grow from hundreds to over 1,000.
Pre-Trump, they would apply for asylum, they would be allowed through, they would come into America, and then there would be some social services for them on the American side. Correct. Now, because they put people on a list, they're metering, they're telling asylum seekers to return back to Mexico and wait on the border on the Mexican side. Mexico was not prepared to provide social services for all the people who are basically sitting there on the border.
Correct.
That's
right?
Correct. Metering occurred way before MPP kicked in for us on the Brownsville-Matamoros border. So metering meant that people were told to wait on the list, and they would wait 2 or 3 months, and they would cross, and we wouldn't see them back again. I mean, it was a hard wait, and it was very difficult, but we really had no idea what was to come, because with MPP, it's indefinite wait. MPP was a policy that was put in place, started on the Tijuana, California border first, and it's Migrant Protection Protocols is what it means. But the word protection is a misnomer because basically it's trying to prevent people who want to request asylum from coming into the United States. And so the aim is to never let them in.
What are the things that they are doing in the MPP program systemically to show you that the aim is never to let them in?
They set up court systems on the bridge itself. Right after you cross, they set up these tents, and that's their court. And so people are not allowed into the US to go to the regular court system. There are these fake tents that they built, and the judges aren't even there. They are through a Zoom
video conference
doing here. And so our understanding is that less than 1% of the people that are going through those courts are actually giving asylum.
So it's basically the court is a tent on a bridge with a judge that's video conferenced through from another area.
Yep. And it's just a quick way to process people to not let them in and say that they went through a system, which really is a fake system.
How did you guys all meet, and how did you decide that you wanted to start a program to help asylum seekers who are coming to this bridge?
We started because one Sunday morning, two years ago, I got an email from a friend, Mike Seifert, that they were needing help with asylum seekers in McAllen, Texas, in the bus station. And at that point, I called Sergio and Mike, and Melvin and I went with them to McAllen. We saw the need. We went to the nearest dollar store and provided, got all kinds of toiletries and brought them to the bus station. That's how we started. But McAllen is about an hour drive from Brownsville. We researched here in Brownsville, and the need was the same, basically. And really, the people that went above and beyond were Sergio and Mike and my wife, Melba, because they got on Facebook and they started telling people for the need, and it just snowballed. The thing with Team Brownsville is you have a lot of people that just want to help because they love people. It's the humane thing to do.
Where are they coming from mostly?
We have people from Guatemala, from El Salvador,
Honduras.
And these are all people who were returned back to Mexico, and now a year later, they're still at the border trying to come in.
Yes.
So they've been at this border now for more than a year, maybe
Yes,
longer.
many of them have.
What are their conditions, and what happens after they don't get approved? They just still wait there?
They're giving their first court date when they come across, when they finally get their time to come across. And then they're saying, okay, we're going to give you a future court date 6 to 8 months later. During that time, you're going to get your evidence together and whatever you're going to get together to fight your case. But you're not going to come into the US. You're going to wait in Mexico. And so that's where they're waiting. And then sometimes they get a second court date, and then they say, okay, 6 months later, you're going to have your next court date. So go back and wait in Mexico.
And is Mexico doing anything to assist them or not really?
So we've been working pretty closely with the INM, which is the Mexican equivalent of what would be our CBP, our Border Patrol. They have made it very clear to us that we are visitors in their country and that we have to abide by their rules. And so every time we want to do something, we have to ask them if we can do it. So for example, everything from how many tents we can provide Wi-Fi or not, to the food program we do, every single thing has to go through them and through their system. So as far as whether they're providing something, they built some domes that have tents underneath them. They built some concrete showers. They brought in some porta potties. And for the most part, it's the Americans that are providing the daily supplies, the tents, the food, the shelter, everything.
What's the living conditions like?
Well, right now, the living conditions are very challenging because everyone lives in a tent, and we're in the rainy season right now. We've had tents collapse. We've had large tents. The tent that was the dining hall collapsed. We've had small tents. So living conditions are really terrible, honestly. When you have to deal with high heat, mosquitoes, torrential rain, mud, there's nothing we really can do to make the living conditions what anyone would call good.
What kind of stories are you hearing then that would make somebody choose to live in these conditions on the border between the United States and Mexico in a tent with a porta potty?
They know that if they return to the country, someone would not be alive today. Some of them will tell us, I had a 14-year-old daughter that was raped by a gang, and they come and do it daily, and there's nothing I can do about it. And so I have my 12-year-old and my 10-year-old and my 8-year-old that are next, because when they turn 14, that's just what happens. So I can't live like that. So I'd rather be here where they're actually alive and safe.
A person who would tell you that story, are they being granted asylum or are they being denied?
We know that some people are trickling down, that their stories, and they have to have evidence. They have to have police records. They have to have pictures. They have to have documentation. It's not just verbal, because they're not going to believe you.
Right.
People that have enough evidence and can fight their case. We know some are winning their asylum case.
We had a young lady, a pregnant young lady that was released, and my husband brought her home from the bus station. She has, I think it was like 6 months pregnant, and she also had like a 4-year-old daughter with her. And at that time, she had been incarcerated with her daughter, and she had a little son that was incarcerated with her husband somewhere else. And she was released, and her 3-year-old son was not released with her husband. So I said, you know, how can you expose yourself to so much? Why? She said, you don't understand. This daughter that I have here that's 4 years old, she watched our next door neighbor get slaughtered with a machete. And she got very worked up as she was telling me this over dinner here in my house. And so stories like that are stories that we hear every day in and day out.
You go over every day, you cross the bridge, you drive, bring food, you bring supplies. How is this all getting funded?
When we started, it was through Facebook. We were just asking friends to donate water, to donate snacks, to donate. That's how we started, like Melba and Andrea talked about. When we first met all together, what I did is I put on Facebook, like on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I said, on Saturday, I'm going to be at Sam's Wholesale Club, and I want people to come and donate. And they did. And my car was full, and we had enough to go across for several weeks. And people started donating items. And a lot of us were spending money from our own pocket to buy tents and cushions and things like that. And then we started a GoFundMe.
How much have you raised?
Mine has gone up to about 58,000.
Wow.
Since then, we became a 501c. And so now we have our own webpage, teambrownsville.org, and we have a donate button there. And we also have a volunteer button.
How many people do you have volunteering right now?
I took over as volunteer coordinator about a year and a half ago. We had up to 30, 40 volunteers a week for a long time, all through last summer, through last fall. People just wanted to come and see and work and participate. They wanted to participate in our escuelita. They wanted to make dinner, to serve dinner. So we were actually getting more volunteers than we actually needed.
And these were people coming from all over the country.
How many people are in this camp right now?
The numbers have kind of fluctuated. So they've actually gone down over the past month or so as people have seen that nothing is happening, that nobody is crossing for appointments. Yeah, we were at 2,000, now we're maybe at 1,200 or 1,500.
And you've had trouble since coronavirus being able to supply everything, or no?
It's been challenging because we need to source everything through Mexico, but we have some contacts in Matamoros that are helping us a lot. And so that's how we're keeping it up.
How do you get the food? Are people literally putting it in the back of their car and driving it across the bridge?
But we have always put it in wagons and walked it across the bridge.
Wow.
It's just the humane thing to do. And what Team Brownsville have, the people that volunteer for Team Brownsville are these kind of people that are concerned about humans, about human nature and how people are living. It doesn't matter what color they are or what gender they are, what country they're coming from, what religion. We're not a religion. We're just people that care. We're just people that see a need, and that's what drives us. That's what makes us put things in wagons and take them across in 100-degree weather or when it's raining or when it's cold.
What's the opinion of people in Brownsville, Texas, about immigrants and about people who are on the other side of the bridge?
Brownsville in the valley has always been like a sanctuary city. We're a city made of immigrants. I mean, my mom was immigrated herself, and many of us have a history of our parents, grandparents being immigrants themselves.
How deep of a relationship do each of you have with the migrants in the camps?
So we started, recognizing children by name and providing the school that my wife began.
And we met the parents, and the parents would come to the school, and And I don't want you to think it's a school like you think, okay? It didn't have a building. We were just teaching on the sidewalk. And later on, the Mexicans were kind enough to put a tent there. March 15th was the last day that we had face-to-face class. So you need to also be thinking that it wasn't just us. It wasn't just this team. I had 20 to 30 volunteers from all over the country coming to do bilingual lessons, to do ESL, to do art lessons, to do yoga. We started a book club, and the children had to read 10 books per week. We had children starting to write short stories. A lot of the parents would come and sit in the class with the kids, because remember, we had a dirt floor, so we would get tarps and put them there on top of the mud or on top of the sidewalk, whatever it was. And we became close every single day up till today. I get texts from the parents, hey, we ran out of pencils, we need paper. Can you get us a pencil sharpener? So-and-so has a toothache and we need to go to the dentist, and seeing things like that. So how can you say no?
What do you think is their greatest fear?
Their greatest fear is not having a fair opportunity to be granted asylum, because right now it's not fair. It's a corrupt system. Not being able to actually have a true court system that will give them the opportunity to fight their asylum case.
They're coming up on what they consider to be their last court appointment before a decision is made. And so with all these pushbacks and the fact that they can't cross and go to their last appointment, it's just causing more and more anxiety. They hear other people's stories about not getting asylum, and they wonder if that's what's going to happen to them. They have a lot of faith, honestly.
Right.
And they continue to feel like, you know, God is on their side and that somehow they're going to get through this process.
The only way to get through is with faith at this point, because they've been treated extraordinarily
And-
bad. How can people donate to Team Brownsville, to donate to help the migrants on the other side of the bridge?
TeamBrownsville.org is our webpage. Very simple.
And you can go there, and you can go there to donate, and you can also go there to volunteer.
That's correct. We have a donate button and a volunteer button. And I want you to make sure your listeners know that nobody in Team Brownsville is paid. Everybody is a volunteer. And so all the funds go directly to the asylum seeker. Can I also tell you our other mission is helping at the bus station, because people are still being released from the detention centers to the bus station. A group of 6 young men from Guatemala were dropped off at the bus station very late, 6:37 in the evening, and they couldn't get tickets till the next day. So I picked them up, and this is another thing that Team Brownsville is doing, is providing a hotel room for them, providing dinner for them. And then Mark just went right now to take them back to the bus station, because when they're dropped off there, they're dropped off with any money, with no food, with nothing but what they're wearing.
This is a show about reaching your American dream. Tell me what your American dreams are.
For people to live in peace and to share our gifts with one another.
Equality and justice for all children.
My American dream is freedom and justice for all.
My dream is to wake up tomorrow and for racism to be gone, evaporated from the earth, because I believe that all of this is rooted in racism. And if we just get to know each other, we would realize that there's no difference, that we all bleed the same, we all hurt the same, we all share tears the same.
Thank you very much for coming on. You guys are doing an amazing job down there. Thank you.